Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast, where we answer your sales distress calls. I'm your host, Liz Hyman, bringing the rescue boat to your sales challenges. In this ever-changing sales environment, it's easy for leaders to feel adrift. We're here to be the beacon guiding you to success. Each episode, I'm joined by top sales experts and practitioners who have navigated this waters and come out victorious. Together, we'll uncover the insights and strategies that will help you hit your sales targets and grow your business. So if you're ready to turn your sales distress into sales success, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic. Hi, I'm Liz Hyman, and this is your Sales SOS podcast. I am here with Bryn Tillman, Chris Bowen, Renee Bigelow.
Hi.
And myself. And we are here to talk to you about the Q4 Scramble. I can't believe it's already Q4, you guys. Can you believe it's October?
Yeah, I can't believe it's the 21st century. So,
it creeps up on you so fast. So here we are. It's Q4. And I want to tell you, I put a poll out on LinkedIn just to kind of see what kind of answers I would get. And I said, hey, what's your Q4 looking like? Is it like a mad dash to hit your numbers? Is it close, or we are well positioned for Q4? We got this going on. And the 20% said it's a mad dash, which was a lot lower than I expected. 80% said it's going to be close. Nobody feels like they're well positioned for Q4. What happened?
Should we answer that?
Yes, answer.
Well, I am actually surprised that only 20% said that there's not a mad dash, because we are definitely seeing slowdown in the marketplace. Everyone I talk to across all industries, they're just seeing a slowdown. But what happened in that it's not doing that? I mean, I think there are so many factors in what's going on inside of buyers. I honestly don't know that it's an economic thing, but I do think it's a head trash thing. I think there are so many people that are afraid of the unknown, whatever that unknown might be, that they're holding on tight to their wallets. So that's just what I've been seeing. I think it's really broken. I'm going to share two more points and then I'll pass the baton. I think AI has created a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that are afraid of what's going to happen to their jobs. I live in the sales and marketing world, and so many people are fearful of AI versus embracing AI. And I think that leads to this uncertainty that creates a slowdown in the economy. And I think the last thing is people are still selling the way they've always sold instead of the way the new buyers are buying. And so that's what I see happening.
I think those are really great points, Bryn. I'll add, I think I've seen, I think all of 2024 has felt like a story of two stories, sluggish and slivers. I feel like it's just been a little bit sluggish. It's not like there've been these huge pullbacks, but it's been a little bit sluggish, and that compounds over four, into fourth quarter. It just kind of compounds. And what I'm seeing with many of my clients and also colleagues that I talk to is it's a tale of slivers, right? It's not like people are just wholesale dropping things, but they're cutting by little slivers, saving little bits everywhere they can, and that adds up. If you have a big client list and there are lots of little, it's death by a thousand cuts kind of feeling. So I feel like going into fourth quarter, that's a big story right now, is how do we, get back some of those slivers if we can.
Yeah. Chris, what are you seeing?
Well, for me, because I'm mostly focused on healthcare payers at this time of the year, this is always our slower portion of the year because you hit open enrollment. It's not a whole lot of things that's going to happen. What you should be leveraging this time of year for is building relationships that you're going to need when budgets get allocated come January. They may know their budgets right around now, but it's making sure you're building those relationships so you're the preferred option when they start making those types of decisions, which usually happen later in the year, beginning of next year. But I think overall, I agree with what Brent and Renee said. You're looking at just uncertainty overall. And when there's uncertainty, I think you get inertia. So
I'm going to agree with all of the things that were said. One is, the uncertainty I think is really clear, and the uncertainty is sluggish, right? People are afraid to make a decision. They need to make a decision. They're not sure which one to make. So when you don't know what's coming, you don't make a decision. So right now, I think the biggest factor in sales is that people aren't making decisions. The decision is nothing right now.
And I think one of the things that you said there, like if you look at, like, I can't remember which book it was, but one of Anthony Iannarino's books, where he started out with buyers are looking for sellers to help them make a decision they either can't or are unwilling to make themselves.
And I think this goes back to what Brent said about we are still selling the way we used to sell. So here it is, 2 years after COVID started, and we are still and we are still an economy that's going like crazy, and we're allowed to sit around and wait for the sales to come in. And frankly, that's not good selling, and it never carries you through difficult times, sluggish times, recessions, anything. So now is the time. And I think this is where we start getting into what do we do? What do we do about this Q4 and needing to hit the numbers? And I think the first thing is our salespeople need to be proactive. They need to be really digging into those sales skills that make them effective. So for so many years, we had such a boom that people were buying in spite of terrible salespeople, in spite of laziness, in spite of salespeople not following up, right? So the sales were happening regardless of really poor sales behavior, and that doesn't cut it right now. And it maybe if you're in certain industries, maybe you're still, maybe if you're in the AI world, people are buying like crazy. But right now, for most people, what we're seeing is buying is a little tougher. And I think the other critical thing that has to change the way our salespeople behave is this AI thing not only creates uncertainty, it creates so much noise. Bryn, how many emails did you get last month?
Me?
Yeah, do you think?
I get 300 or 400 a day.
Yeah. I got 4,000 last month just in my newsletter folder.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't know about you, Chris and Renee. Are you guys... Okay.
Yeah.
Now go ahead, Chris.
No, I mean, it's definitely crazy, right? But it's also, if you're looking at things and people are putting on automated sequences and things along those lines, it's like, are you paying attention to what your customer, what your prospect actually wants, as opposed to, oh, this is our process and I'm just going to follow it blindly? Like that, you're a human. Like, use that, wet computer that's in between your ears a little bit.
And I don't have AI to read my email. And when AI does read my email, it's just filtering stuff out, right? So if you've just sent me a generic email, I'm never even gonna see it. So clearly, hang on one second, Bryn. Clearly, we need to think about the way our salespeople are selling. So let's really dive into, for the next 20 minutes or so, what do we do? It's Q4, and we're either not going to hit our numbers, not sure we're going to hit our numbers, are desperately trying to figure out how we're going to hit our numbers.
So I'll tell you one thing that I'm doing with a couple of clients right now because of this story of slivers, right? We're looking at upselling accounts for Q4, right? Like, because at this point, a lot of, depending on your clientele and your budget and the cost of your product, a lot of projects are just kind of in that sluggish story, right? Like, it may not close before the end of the year. That may be waiting on a new budget. They may be waiting for some uncertainty to clear out. They may be waiting on more consensus. But what is easier to close before the end of the year is gaining back some of those slivers from existing accounts. And you have a history, more about the account, where they're down, like things that you can do to kind of grease those wheels and really offer the service. To your point, Liz, do a better job, right? Selling to someone and that's where I feel like there's some gain for some slivers. So we're working on some upsell projects, right? And ways to reinvigorate, and whether it's a restock kind of thing, right? Because you notice that orders are down slightly, restock and offer an incentive, or it's checking in, not using the words checking in, but reconnecting with clients and seeing what they're planning, where their needs are, what's new with them. It's really amazing to me whenever we go in and really look at these things, like trade show leads that we've gotten over the year, how many are untouched, right? And by that, I mean, people who are already doing some business with us, but we've kind of connected with a trade show or something like that. And we just haven't gotten to them because the frenzy of everything. But when you really zero in, there's a story to get some of those slivers back.
Can I and that?
Sure.
Because I love that. And I'm going to say, because I'm always coming from that LinkedIn perspective, it's just sort of my DNA. But go into your client accounts and search for all of the stakeholders inside of that organization that you want to meet. Have a conversation with your champion. Maybe you're in one department or one area, and say, hey, here are the 17 other people inside the company that I'd love to have a conversation with. Are you open to me just dropping your name, letting them know we're working together? Don't even ask for the introduction. We don't want to put our client to work. But if I reach out and I say, hey, Renee, Liz Hyman and I are working together in the sales department. I mentioned your name, or your name came up in our conversation, and she thought it made sense for me to reach out and introduce myself and loop you in what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And when you start to have that conversation, who in my company, if this is happening in my company, I want to be looped in. I don't want to be out of the loop. Right. So when we start to have those conversations with all the other influencers or decision makers, to exactly your point, Renee, which is brilliant, how do we get in front of them without it feeling like I just want to sell you more? And it's really, I just want to talk about what we're already doing inside your company, so you're in the know. And to start those conversations. The second piece, and this is, in my opinion, preparing for the beginning of the year, is start to make a list of who else that champion knows outside of the organization that you want to meet. Once you've optimized their company, who do they know that they can introduce you to or give you permission to name drop to fill the new pipeline?
I want to build on that for just a second, because I've been working with a client, and it's this very typical thing I see, particularly in manufacturing, where we're waiting for requests for quotes. We're calling purchasing and waiting for requests for quotes. We just keep calling purchasing and waiting for requests for quotes. And now is a really good time, as the year is wrapping up, to do exactly what you're talking about, Bryn, is who else do I know in that organization? Can I be talking to the engineers? Can I be talking to the project managers? Can I be talking to some other people who might be able to put urgency or might be able to weigh things more heavily in my direction as we're making these last minute purchases? If we are just waiting for purchasing, can you get can you meet the qualifications? Can you get it in my timeline? Can you get me the cheapest price? That's all they really care about. And if you're waiting for them, now is a great time to reach out to the engineers and the project managers, who you can say, hey, look, we support you every time. This works really well when you're working with us. How do we build more trust with you to get more of your business? And I think it's a really good time for those conversations. Chris, what do you think? And what's your team doing? Chris is in the trenches doing it now.
Well, I think the first thing is looking at your pipeline and understanding what has a realistic view of closing, that you can say, okay, what's the odds of that happening, and being able to push those things out, because we still only have 168 hours a week, right? So if you take that out and you take the holidays and everything else that are going to impact you in Q4, you really need to make sure you're spending your time in the right places, if that's where you're going to be, right? Doesn't mean you stop doing some of the basic prospecting and outreach that you would normally do, but you really need to be strategic if you're going to be focusing on hitting that number in Q4. So that's the first thing. Make sure you know where you're going to spend your time. Then I think after you have that, then you can start looking at those areas for And part of this is going to depend on what your normal sales cycle tends to look like. But what are those things that you're going to be able to pull forward that are going to be able to hit that timeline? And then it becomes at least a predictable or understandable process that you're going to go through. And then you fill in the gaps where you have to. But that's how I tend to approach it, is more, let's figure out where we're going to spend our time. And then once you know where you're going to spend your time, then it becomes a whole lot easier to sort of allocate the open pieces of your calendar.
So I love that concept. I call it funnel triage, right? So going into the CRM, going into the pipeline funnel and triaging. This could happen. This probably isn't going to happen. Let's not focus on it. This we might be able to move up. This one we positively can't. This one's never going to close. Just stop. You know what? We've really not given the attention to this one that actually could close if we put a little effort into it, right? So this triaging is really powerful this time of year. And don't just stick to the bottom, like move up the funnel a little bit and see if there's stuff up there that maybe really should be moving down that you haven't been focused on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, absolutely. I mean, again, that's where I think understanding what your sales cycle length is for, and ideally per phase, but at least your overall sales cycle. So you know, hey, if those things are at the top of my funnel, I can still pull, if they're interested in these particular offers, these are things that tend to close in that period of time, where some of these others, maybe they're going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Bryn, what were you going to say? There we go.
Yeah, I have my you are on mute mug, so have that.
Love that. I need that.
I mean, I just love everything that everyone is saying. The one thing I will throw in, which might go back to what we were originally talking about, is what change do we have to make? And I think there are 3 major changes that we have to make as salespeople. The first one is we have to detach from what our prospect is worth to us and attach to what we are worth to the prospect. We have to go to market with the mindset that we are here to serve and to help, and the sale will come when the time is right. When we as salespeople go out with that number on our backs, with, whatever my quota is and how far I am from my quota and how close I might be to making President's Club, whatever that, when we have that in our heads, we mess up the sale. So we create what we fear the most. So the first thing is changing the mindset about, we really have to come out here, look in a way to help the client succeed. And then if our solution is right, the sale will happen if we do a good job of that. The next thing we have to do, it's the opposite of what people, of that in a way, is there are a lot of salespeople that are like, there's just so much noise out there. I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to and so there's this, I'm here if they need me. And that this is where the mindset needs to shift from, I'm here if they call me, to I have an obligation, especially, and I'm going to go back to, if we're in a sluggish time, chances are that our clients are in a sluggish time. And if our solution helps our client get out of sluggish, it is our fiduciary responsibility to help them. Yep. And it is malpractice if we don't. So if we have a phenomenal solution that can impact our clients in a positive way, and we don't let them know about this solution in a way that's of value to them, it's malpractice. So we have the one way, which is I'm too pushy and I'm pitching too soon. We have the other way, which is I'm afraid to pitch, so I'm going to do nothing and I'm going to freeze. And then number 3, which is really going to come to bring all of this together, is you have to be able to, I'm going to say this way. Let's see if I can. It used to be, it's what you know, long time ago. And then it's who you know. And then maybe 15 years ago was who knows you. But now it's what value can you bring to the table? And you need actually all. You need to be really, really good at your craft. You need to be a thought leader, a subject matter expert. You need to be able to solve challenges. You need to have a good network of people that you know. You also need to have a good network of people that are familiar with you and your content and the value you bring. Right. And we absolutely at all, across the board, we need to be showing up in a way that earns the right for us to get those conversations. And anyway, I'm going on and on.
Yeah. And what I want to do is I want to lean into that a little bit more, because as a sales leader, I hope we have lots of sales leaders listening and watching. As a sales leader, what can you do? Like, okay, so we're talking about what salespeople can do, but as the sales leader, what can you do? And I think this is about the conversations. And Chris, jump in just a second here. What are the conversations you need to be having as relates to what we're talking about? So one is go through the next actions and all of the leads that are in there and say, okay, what value are we bringing here? What's your value proposition? Why should they buy this from us? What's in it for them? How will this make their world better? Who cares about it? How do we talk to them about it? Right. So just saying, I got to follow up with him, and the sales leader going, great, follow up. No, you don't have time for following up conversations. Those are, one, they're a waste of time anytime, but two, right now, you have to have meaningful conversations about value proposition, bringing value, changing lives, changing businesses, not just reducing costs and saving time, but how does this truly impact you? How is this worth the investment right now? And how will it make your life better? And if your team can't have those conversations, that's a problem that you need to fix right now, because now is when you can have the greatest impact. Chris, you were going to say something.
No. I can't remember what I was going to say, but it was going to probably be something off of what Bren was talking about. And it just brought up a saying that my first sales leader back in 2002 used to say semi-regularly, which is, shy salespeople have skinny kids, right? And it's just more of like, you can't be sitting back and just waiting for things to happen. You actually have to take some level of action combined with your knowledge, and then mix in those portions of your network, those people that know you and those people that know who you are, and really build out your plan. Not doing that is what I would consider malfeasance. So
I love that. Can I just add, sales leaders need to start rethinking the KPIs. Yes. They are so broken.
Yes.
They are measuring the wrong things, and they're encouraging the wrong behavior.
And Bryn, let's jump into that when we get to our third segment, because that is really going to be powerful in that conversation. Welcome, Daryl. Daryl has just joined us. Renee, you were going to jump in. What were you about to say?
I was just going to offer a suggestion, strong suggestion, but a suggestion for making sure that those conversations have value, right? Versus the ones where you say it's kind of a waste of time. We're past that point. I challenge sales leaders to work with their sales teams to ban the words checking in.
Yes.
Right? Like, so if you do that, if you ban that from what you're sending or what you're saying, you automatically have to replace it with something more valuable.
And I'm just checking in. I'm just following up. No.
Yeah.
I want to jump back to something Bryn said earlier. So if I don't remember, there was Forrester, I think it's Forrester's numbers, where something like in a typically in a sales situation, it used to take between like 5 and 8 contacts to reach a new buyer. Now we're up to like 17 or 18 or 20 to reach a new buyer. And here's the really interesting thing. It also means for those people who we already have relationships, it could take 5 or 6 attempts to get their attention again because they're so overwhelmed. What doesn't work is I'm just bumping this up to the top of your folder for the 17th time. Like, if you didn't get their attention the first time, try something else. Try something again. It is not my responsibility to respond to you. I owe you nothing. So if you want me to communicate with you, then share something with me that's of value.
Liz, can I add to that? This is what I'm super passionate about. I think you've heard me say this ad nauseum on clients that we work with together. But I have a messaging golden rule, and it plays into what you're saying, right? Like minimum 8 to 12 frequency, but it's really important that it is across 3 to 5 different formats.
Right.
So this goes back to what you said in the a few minutes ago when you were talking about how many emails do we all have in our inbox, right? And how much of it is going. Do not rely on one single channel for those 8 to 12. You're going to catch attention in different ways. You're going to resonate simply sometimes because you switch the format. So, you mentioned emails. Bryn mentioned LinkedIn. There's the old-fashioned phone. There's 3. Right? You can keep adding different ways, and that will help you cut through clutter more than checking in, bumping this up, that sort of thing. So I'm just really passionate people understand not only the frequency, but the mix of format makes a big difference.
So, and even what you're sending, it doesn't always have to be about you. One of the campaigns we have with some of our salespeople that are trying to unghost people that they've had long conversations with that now don't respond is go into LinkedIn and see who do they follow, who are they engaging with. You can even search on LinkedIn of your first degree connections, all the people that follow Brene Brown, right? We can now go out and find and listen to a podcast that Brene's been on. And I go and say, hey, Daryl, it's been a while since we last talked, but I noticed you're a fan of Brene Brown. So am I. I recently heard her on a podcast and I thought of you. If you're interested, let me know. I'm happy to send you a link. And it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with what he's following, what he likes, what he wants. We call it prospect by influencer. So
one of the things that I would jump in on here, guys, and say, building what Bryn is saying for sure, is a couple things. On the multi-touch, I mean, obviously I have a CRO at VanillaSoft, sales engagement platform. It's all multi-channel. One of the things people don't do is they don't leave even a voicemail anymore. But the voicemail is influence, exactly what Bryn was saying. They may not recall you back, but they hear your name. That's so brilliant spot there. On the actual try to get their attention, go and make your own content where you tag challenges that your prospects are having. I was talking to Bryn the other day, and she was sharing this challenge. What we've done at company ABC has done this. What have you guys done, right? So they're going to see you getting tagged. So creating content. What we used to do a lot of is we would actually go and do what's in it for them. They're not responding right now to our outreach because they don't have the budget. They don't want to take the risk. Okay, so what's in it for them? Well, what's in it for them is notoriety and career building and a win. Let's host a corporate webinar for a big ass account and invite them to be a panelist. I'm not talking about your prospective sale. Can you be a panelist on this? And by the way, when they're in the lobby, they're talking to you, and then you can say, how are things going? I haven't heard from you. There's so many ways you can do it. Influence is huge. But the last thing I'll say in this one is, and I see this over and over and over again, people forget about the buying committee. Yes, there may be one decision maker, but there's lots of people in that buying committee that influence the cycle. So if the primary person isn't responding to you, go to everybody else in the buying committee. Trust me, they'll talk behind the scenes. There's so many ways you can do it here. When I see this fail, it's because the sales rep has been lazy, as opposed to, and they just don't want to make the effort.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to wrap up this first section. And Daryl, I'm going to reach out to you with a question here before we wrap up, which is it's Q4, Scramble time. We started off and realized that I did a poll. 20% of the people I polled said that they're making a mad dash for Q4 and they're not sure they're going to make it. 80% said it's going to be really close. Nobody said they felt comfortable about hitting their numbers. So do you have any, we came up with a couple. I'm going to use this moment to reiterate them. Now's a great time for upselling. Now's a great time for getting people to restock or buy a few more of. Now's a great time to go back and look at those trade show leads that were really excited but didn't respond right away. Now's a great time to reach out to the other stakeholders. And pipeline triage. Now's a great time to really dig into that pipeline, figure out what's going on and what's possible. Any other last thoughts for us on this topic, Daryl? How are we going to make Q4 if we haven't gotten there already? And before you start, I'm going to tell you our next one is going to be what shouldn't you do, or what are bad decisions. So any thoughts, any last hope we have to hit our Q4?
I'll be the contrarian here, folks. For Q4, at the start, what you should be doing is prepping your internal stakeholders at your organization for what is real and what is not, and creating advocacy in your behalf. If you're going to miss that number, don't shock them with it in December. Now, they shouldn't be shocked. They should be watching all the reports, talking to RevOps. They should be aware. But it's amazing how many people are clueless until it's the moment of panic and they're being asked by the board, are you going to make it? And then they come to you and you say no, and they're not the bad guy. You're the bad guy. Set their expectations now. Have them create a plan with you. So you're doing it together. So if you miss the number, at least you took early steps and they can see you had good intent. So contrarian point of view.
I'm going to add to that, though, as long as we're having internal conversations, this is going to be really close, guys. I need legal. I need accounting. I need everybody on my side right now, because when I say go, you got to be ready to go. We don't have any time for fooling around. So getting that buy-in from the whole team, getting buy-in from the whole team to be there for the sales that we are able to close is really important. There's no time for stalling. And we're all, I have to share why we're all making smiling faces right now. Chris just shared with us a local billboard for a dry cleaner that said tailored Swift, which is hysterical. I love that.
And I have a blog post that's going out in 2 days, or Monday, 3 days. That is, it's tailored Swift for sales. So it's, when Darryl was talking about what's in it for them, this is sales, what's in it for them. So it's tailored, and so it's around how do you personalize, and sales, what's in it for them. So look for my tailored Swift.
Yeah. So now's a good time to do things that are attention getting. So, all right, we are going to wrap up this section on its Q4. What can we do? What are the last ditch efforts to hit our numbers? And we're going to end here. But in our next segment, we're going to talk about what are the big mistakes that companies make and why did they make them? So join us here for our next episode. And thanks for joining us for this episode of Sales SOS Podcast. And that's a wrap of this episode of the Sales SOS Podcast. A huge thank you to our experts for throwing us a lifeline with their insights. We hope today's episode has equipped you to navigate the sales seas with confidence. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to the Sales SOS Podcast on your favorite platform. If you have questions, comments, or topics you'd like us to explore, join us live on LinkedIn every second Friday, or share your questions on YouTube or LinkedIn. Until next time, keep sailing towards those sales goals. I'm Liz Hyman, your captain here at the Sales SOS Podcast, saying smooth sailing and successful selling.